changed my title, so the title is not the same on your little thing. So here is the title I changed it to, History as a Career or Passion, because that is the question I've been asking myself for the past year or so. And to put in some context, I was originally doing my capstone over chiropractic care, but over more research I found that I find touching people to be the most repulsing thing in the world. And I don't like strangers, I don't like interacting with other people. And history is just something that I can do on my own and teach myself, right? Um, so yeah, next slide. So, why I care about history, all right? So it is interesting to me. I am very naturally good at it. I understand the concepts and what's basically happening in each event very well. And then I think it's a good tool to understand many of our social, economic, and political issues in our nation and around the world. And yeah, I just find it very important. And then Deuteronomy 32:7 says, "Remember the days of old, consider the years of many generations, and your father, and he will show you your elders, and they will tell you." God commands us to remember the days of old and to remember that our actions affect the future and that we could always do better. And then here is just Roman art. It is a mosaic, and I just find it very interesting. All right, first, so this is the myth of how Rome was established, right? So Rome was supposedly established in 753 BCE. BCE means before current era, and that is the secular version of like dating because in Christian universities it's BC, before Christ. All right, so this is gonna be a weird picture, but this is like a staple for Roman art, right? Well, boom, all right. And so the story goes that these two children are Romulus and Remus, and they are sons of the god of war, right? And this queen cheated on her husband, and it is a common practice in the ancient world to discard children by throwing them in nature so that they will be eaten by wolves. But then the legend goes that this mythic wolf took these kids and nurtured them. They grew up very big and strong, and then they established the first city. And then here is my experience with historical research. So my father is a history professor, and I asked him how I can do basic historical research on my own. And he says to choose a broad topic. So a broad topic can be like 1,000 years, like a huge amount of time, right? And then just read a book or two on that very broad topic just to get yourself with the normal topics. And then next, go like more narrow within a certain period in that topic. And third, like hone it in as like narrow as you can. So to like one day, one person, like that. And then he said, but most importantly, choose a topic that you're actually interested in. You will not have fun. You will not find it interesting at all. If it's like some boring period, like early American, right? Like a snooze fest, right? And then my research, so I did the Romans, right? So you can't just call it the Roman Empire because that's actually the latest date. And so the Romans as a whole span over more 1,000 years. And then my more narrow one would be the Roman Republic, which is from 509 BCE to 27 BCE, I think. Yeah. And then for my last one, I chose the event of Julius Caesar's assassination. So pretty cool. Right. And then here's a quick summary of what I have learned. So the three periods of Rome, all right, there's the periods of the kings where Rome was a monarchy. This was the first one from 753 to 510. And then the second one was the one I studied, which is the Roman Republic from 510 to 49. And then the imperial Rome is the most well known. That is the Roman Empire, and that's from 49 BC to 395 AD. And Many people consider the end of the Roman Empire to be when the West fell, because the East was still not thriving, but like still there. But it was later named to the Byzantine Empire. Right. Next, the Roman Republic's government was, you would think, a republic, right? Because Republic of Rome, but it was more like a corrupt oligarchy, and that's when there are a select number of very rich people who control the entire nation. And they were voted in, but they bribed people to get their spot into the government. And yeah. And then, so here's my favorite part about history, is the expanding of the territories. Alrighty, ready? So currently we're like mid-Roman Republic, right? And they have basically about this much land, right? And so the Gauls are the Western, Northern European barbarians, right? So they have no like centralized nation. They're all just very tiny tribes, right? Now, sometimes these tribes form together, right? And they make massive armies. They march down here and burned Rome. And then after a couple of years, that like, they didn't like that. So then they marched their way up here. And then, so, all right. This is a very broad and like simplified like education that I have received here, right? So now they control the entire Italian peninsula, which can gain access to easy trade within this region here. And yeah. And then we get to the Punic Wars, all right? So the Punic Wars is fought against the city-state known as Carthage, and they're around north of Africa, right? And now the city-state had a bunch of provinces here, 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 and here, right? So they were very powerful. However, not as powerful as our boys here, right? And in the First Punic War, the Romans sailed over, conquered Corsica and Sicily, and now we have this. And then Second Punic Wars, Rome also won, and then they gained control of the Western Mediterranean. And then finally, the third one, they sailed to North Africa, burned Carthage, and now they've controlled all of the western part of the Mediterranean, therefore establishing their influence and power as a major nation. All right, and then the Civil War, which was between Julius Caesar. So this, now we fast forward like another 200 years, right? So there's Julius Caesar, you probably know him, right? And then this guy named Pompey, well not Pompey, it's like Pompey, and they both wanted to become emperor, and they both wanted to be king, right? And then this is a famous picture of Julius Caesar with his legions crossing the Rubicon, and the Rubicon is a river in the north of Italy. So he has his legions up here and Rome's here, and he's just marching down here, right? And so many people consider the crossing of the Rubicon to be Julius Caesar's point of no return, and which ended the Republic of Rome. And then Julius Caesar's assassination is when he finally won the war after 4 years. It was from 49 to 45. And his political opponents did not like this, so then they ended up stabbing him 23 to 27 times. Now, this was all by different people, illustrated here, because the idea was so that not one person can be blamed, so that they never got actually in trouble for killing him. Next, all right, this is where the history, like, passion dies. All right. So, because I am all about, I love cars a lot more than history, right? And I like not being broke. So here are the 5 or 6 jobs that I have found that I might be interested in, right? So high school history teacher, basically what I'm doing now, right? And like just little assignments and that stuff, right? Now here's the problem, all right? That's way too low, all right? Second, this one, I thought was the coolest thing when I was like 12 to like 14, because you go into the Denver Museum and you're like, wow, huge dinosaurs. You see all the Egyptian stuff. Cool, right? Now I'm more like chilling with this, but like then I actually went and interviewed a museum curator, and he's describing his job, and that seemed like the most boring job in the entire world. All they do is file stuff. All they do is like occasionally answer questions and write papers. And I'm like, no, all right. So next, art curator, which is basically the same thing, but instead of a museum, it's an art gallery. This, you could not major in history. You need to major in art history. And I thought it was cool, but then I realized that the majority of them are on the 40K mark, and you need a master's. And I'm like, okay. And then next, this one is my favorite one that like I would most likely go into. Now, you see this very broad salary range, right? Like very, very, very broad. This is because this is the top Ivy League full tenure professor, right? And these are the adjuncts, all right? So, yeah. Next is lawyer. You can get, or you can be a lawyer if you just major in history for your bachelor's and then get your JD. But again, I don't like dealing with people. Now, so if I were to become a professor, right, so I would need to understand the job market. This is where the majority of my research is, right? Low pay. Extremely competitive. The universities pump out more history graduates than there are jobs available. And there are people either smart or smarter than you, or just as smart with more qualifications than you, and they're applying for the same job. And yes, so it's very hard. And then next, the terrible job security for adjuncts. So here's a neat little chart, all right? So at the R1 and R2 schools, the distribution between part-time and full-time members are around the same, right? But then you get into more like master level, right? You see the part-time, which are the adjuncts, to skyrocket more, and that's simply because the universities find the adjuncts to be more cheap to employ, because you can pay them around half of the salary of a full tenure, which is around 40, 50K, with no benefits. And yeah, and then so why they're part-time is that they'll work for one semester, and then if they do good, then they can work for the next one. But if they don't, they're just gone. It's not that they're fired, it's that they are just simply not rehired. Right? And I want a job. So. Next, oh yeah. And then here, is it worth following your passion? For me, I don't know if the risks are too much. And so yeah, I'm still trying to figure that out. Thank you.